All right, welcome to the CrossFit Grandview podcast. I think we're on 36 or 7. I'm not sure where we're at number-wise. We'll go ahead and number it when we put this out. Today, I brought Dave Ulmer back. I think, as long as we can keep doing this, me and Dave, we had a good time last time, so we're going to try and do this more often. Today, our topic is going to be strength cycles. I have a lot of people ask me, especially people maybe coming in from other gyms, about when are you going to run a strength cycle? At our gym, we used to do it this way, and this is something that I used to plan pretty often in our training, especially when the line was sort of blurred between were we training the entire population to try, our whole gym to try and get good at the CrossFit games, and because you have to be able to be strong enough to do these events. So we ran a lot more of those, and then as that started to fork out into like general population and then sort of our competition program, we pulled some of that strength cycle stuff out, but we're going to talk about that today. And strength cycles are great. I ran them personally a ton because strength was a big weakness of mine, just in general, especially slow strength. So good example, like when I was in high school, I remember the first time I really bench pressed, I was probably a senior, where I really got into it. And I remember when I was testing, like right when we started, it's one of those things where just like an empty bar is like wobbly on you. Yeah. I think I could barely eke out like a rep or two with 95 pounds. And I was like 18 years old. So that just goes to show you, like, a lot of people thought that I was some sort of maybe a high level athlete when I was younger or anything. I'm like, no, man, I had to chip away at this stuff with strength cycles. I think the great thing about strength cycles is it's very easy for people to wrap their head around because they can see these numbers ticking up. Yeah. And you're prioritizing strength, but it is a bit of a detriment to balancing, especially when you're looking at CrossFit, all of the energy systems, all of the 10 physical skills. Yeah. You were pretty naturally a strong guy. So it might have been something, I don't know. I didn't know you when you were younger, and how you prioritize strength, but maybe just give us a little background of when you started lifting and like maybe some of the sort of different strength programs or cycles you've been through, just in your training.
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of got into weightlifting pretty early. I was like sports as a little kid growing up, and probably I would say, sometime around like maybe 5th or 6th grade. And you did some stuff at gym class. I think you had some small exposure to some resistance training stuff, but I was actually a equipment manager for like the high school team when I was a real young kid, like a ball boy type of thing, And so we go to practices, help out and do things. So I was kind of in the weight room, and, a lot of the coaches that were, coaching the football team were also gym teachers or strength coaches. So I was around that environment pretty early, and I was, learning how to do some stuff. So I think even early on, like 6th grade, 7th grade, by, 7th and 8th grade, definitely, I was lifting, before, after practice or in the winter, doing some small stuff at school, whatever weight room they had, But yeah, I mean, I got pretty physically developed pretty early. I was pretty naturally strong. Plus, I just kind of saw the results. So I just took advantage of it. It was just kind of the best of both worlds. I had the drive and motivation, but I was pretty strong kind of naturally. So, you get into high school and you've got, I played basketball and lacrosse as well, but, during the football season, the summer, everything was, there's that kind of periodization. Yep. You're kind of getting into more organized stuff where we'd have, conditioning sessions where running, sprinting, agility drills, stuff like that. Weight room was the weight room. And yeah, you go through different cycles where you're just kind of, start off with maybe a, hypertrophy period, 8 to 12 reps somewhere in there. And then as you progress, you get a little bit heavier. And like you said, you're just kind of increasing the numbers and increasing the intensity and volume as you go.
When you were in high school, did they have was it like the bigger, stronger, faster program? There's some basic, 5x5 things like that. Do you remember?
Probably reaching for that. I mean,
Can you remember what you did specifically at all?
Not really.
Yep.
And it's not like we had professional coaches in there teaching us how to do stuff. It was a lot of our phys ed coaches or our teachers or coaches, football coaches.
Just the big guy.
Who
knew about
my
lifting
lacrosse
weights.
coach and one of our football coaches was a competitive bodybuilder most of his life, so
cool.
he knew what he was doing,
Yep.
right? And I was his project, right? He just loved the way I played and loved teaching me how to do some stuff. But yeah, just no bumper plates, just raw iron. I remember we had some, you'd have posters in the weight room, and I think we even had, for each team, lifting records or weights or things like that. But it probably didn't get more organized or serious until I was in college, right?
Yep.
You're at a D1 AA program, and that was more structured. We had our own weight room for the team. And it again is that kind of periodization. You go through hypertrophy cycles, maybe more deload cycles where it's just kind of maintaining conditioning, keeping your body moving. You'd have strength, periods, and you'd have kind of power periods, things like that.
Yep.
But that kind of varied. During the season, it's just maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Very pretty low volume. I think we lifted twice a week, and then on Sundays after the games, we just do conditioning and gymnastic stuff, bodyweight things. The spring and the winter was really about kind of making some growth and making some gains, things like that. Yeah.
Building yourself up.
Yeah.
I think when I was in that period, I avoided it early because it's almost, especially when you're a kid, you want to hide your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So when I played baseball and things like that, they just send us into the weight room. We didn't have people running us through the workout. They might have a workout up on the board. Yeah. And I remember me and my buddies literally dipping in the corner.
Yeah.
And then when the coach would come in, we'd grab some dumbbells and then we'd run out and take drinks because we knew we had to run or something afterwards.
I think as things have progressed now, there was definitely schools, I think probably back in the 80s and 90s who had, serious workout facilities. Yep. Maybe the school had more money or they had a full-time strength coach in there. But, we did the best we could for the time.
Yeah.
But, I think, I graduated in 01 from high school, so 20 years ago. You look at most high schools now, they can afford it, especially some schools around Columbus. You're going to have probably a more substantial weight room. There's just more knowledge and more emphasis, on getting athletes strong and keeping them healthy.
Yep.
And having the ability and resources to have some people in there to teach these kids to know what they're doing.
When I was teaching, so when I got out of college, then I was substitute teaching all around, and most of the schools either had a third party company that came in.
Yeah, you'll see that a lot too. Yeah.
Or they had a strength and conditioning coach, and it was legit. It was legit, and I'm sure the high school that I used to go to, I think, has a full-time paid strength and conditioning coach now.
Yeah.
And as I got into it, I made a switch. It was cool, though. When I was a senior, I was like, okay, I don't want to hide from this. I want to build my body up and get stronger. And that's kind of when I got into lifting weights, but a lot of it early on was it wasn't strength cycles. It was just lifting weights and using magazines.
Yeah.
And I think I joked with you, trying to execute Jay Cutler or someone like that. It's bodybuilding routine, and I weighed, 145 pounds.
10 by 10 at 70%.
Yeah, it was silly. It's this isn't going to work on a 19-year-old kid who has no base build up or anything like that.
At some point it will, but early on it's, kind of having, volume is earned, right? Intensity is earned, so kind of having a good spot to start that you don't, wreck yourself.
And really just learning how to really back squat, deadlift, and bench. And it wasn't until probably right before I got into CrossFit, I did, it was Joe DeFranco, who's a pretty famous strength and conditioning coach. He trains a lot of NFL, his specialty is NFL football players. And he had a program online called West Side for Skinny Bastards. And I did that, and I remember at the end of it, I deadlifted 445. And I was and I had deadlifted, I think, before I did that program, I had pulled 365, and this is in my mid-20s. So I put, 80, 90 pounds on a compound lift in a couple of months. I'm like, oh, if you stick to this kind of stuff, like it works really
It works,
well.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time I had like a light bulb. After that, I got into CrossFit.com main site, and it's funny because I pulled that 445 right before I got into CrossFit, and everything I did, most of my Olympic lifts, all my times, and my body completely got shredded and changed. And on the main site, total came up, and I'm like, I'm gonna PR everything. And then I jackhammered 385, and I was like, oh, what happened?
Yeah.
And that's when I circled back not too long after that, because I was really confused. I'm like, how did that happen? Because I thought everything was just...
And it would just stay that way.
Yeah, I was just
Infinite growth.
I was on a runaway train that was never going to stop. And after that, the first time I did a concurrent strength and conditioning program was that old Jeff Martin, who was the CrossFit Kids coach. He wrote a really cool article in the earlier days of CrossFit, CrossFit Strength Bias. So it basically mixed 3x5s, 5x3s, and then short metcons afterwards. And then I did that right around the time when you had came to the gym, sort of right when we did the between the sectional and the regional then, and kind of that year. And that's when I did that and got filled that strength tank back up. And I was like, okay, this works well for competitive CrossFit, and that's 2010.
Was that kind of similar to like CrossFit football when that came out?
And I think that was modeled after that.
Okay.
Yeah, very similar sort of thought process. And for me, my struggle was always like I had to keep up with the weights, because as soon as I would get off it, it's almost like some people, they're strong and they just need to condition. Like Mike Gold at our gym is a good example of someone who's like, he's just brute strong, and when he's going to compete in something, he literally just has to like run and do burpees and wads, and then he just shreds up, but his strength stays solid.
Raised, yeah.
Where mine, if I start just running and doing burpees and stuff, my strength
Just burns all your muscle.
Yeah, I'll lose 50 pounds on like compound lifts like that. So that's where I was. When I was competing, I went strength cycle to strength cycle. I have a list of them. I did like a Wendler hybrid of CrossFit, a 20 rep back squat thing.
Which is awesome. I think I'm actually, I hope the gym's not listening. I think I might do that next month for the gym. Like this year, we've been doing just like, every month we'll pick a new challenge. Sometimes it's, accumulate 10 handstand push-ups a day. Just like a little bit of practice things, but I might do like a 20 rep for the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to start off at a reasonable base, but it works and it's difficult.
It is. The one I did it was weird. It was different than like the official one. You started at body weight and you did it every day.
Yeah, that's the one I did.
Okay.
I did it in like 2011 when I was still in Guyana with you guys.
Yeah. That's what I was doing that too. So and then you added 5 pounds a day until you just.
I just did it on everyday train, so probably 5 days a week. Right?
Okay.
So 2 of the days I didn't just because I wasn't there. But
yeah, absolutely. I think I did the same thing until you're just like, you finally dumped the bar off your back.
Yeah, there came a point where I was like, I'm good. I wasn't going to get to the point where I was going to blow my back out or just things were just falling apart, right? Yep. But it was definitely the point where I was like, I feel good about this and I'm breathing real hard. I was funny. Someone was talking about, there was a guy I trained, he mentioned Mark Rivito the other day because he was talking about how he read Starting Strength, and I just remember back in the day laughing at so many of his videos and so many of his quotes, and like I was reading a great quote about the 20 rep back squat from him the other day. I'll if I think about it, I'll bring it up. But oh my God,
he's a character.
Yeah.
So with that program, Joey, who was at our gym, I saw him make the biggest strength increase of any person I've ever seen off any strength program. He went to Greece, I don't know, for a summer, right at the end of college. And he came back real skinny, hadn't touched a weight, think he'd been partying all summer.
Too many euros.
Yep. And he came back, and he was a, had been a fit guy, and he had trained with us, but he'd been gone for a month or two. And he came back, and he wanted to get stronger and compete. And so he back squatted. I think his 1 rep max when he came back was around 275. And I just remember by the end of whatever this program was, it was like 2 months, he was doing like a full 5x5 or a 3x5 with like 375. He was doing reps with 100 pounds more than he had tested into it.
Yeah.
And he had gained like 25 pounds of steel on his body. And I know he was completely drug-free. He's like just 22-year-old kid.
Yep.
He just ate his ass off and got, but it was I've never seen a transformation like that
so fast.
ever. It was pretty dang cool.
I think the big thing is almost any, I would say, but like so many strength cycles work. You can almost just take anything as long as you're increasing the stimulus week by week, session by session, you're gonna get stronger.
Yep.
There's so much stuff that works, right? It doesn't have to be terribly complicated. There's some more well-known ones that people follow that tend to get better results, but
the recoverability is what especially as I've aged, what I've figured out is where people run into their issues, and especially when you try and do it concurrently with like mixed modal metcons, it gets real tricky. Like say blending like a conjugate weightlifting program with real hardcore CrossFit, and you get hurt, or you just like you're so flat that you can't barely move. And I've ran into those issues, and like right now I just switched over to our gym's Power Hour program, which I think you've done some classes with that.
Awesome.
I love that when by the end of the summer we do like a lot of running and things like that, and I'll start to get a little cooked on metcons. I've done like 10 months of breathing hard, diving into the ground, doing burpees and pull-ups, and I'm like, all right, I need a little break. Switch to that, and it's fun. You're doing novel moves, you're pulling chains and doing all that stuff. So that's been my favorite go-to in recent years, is doing the conjugate, because it changes, and there's some variety, similar to like how CrossFit is. And I love like our Power Hour program for that, because you're doing novel exercises and stuff that you're not going to see in like a traditional kind of gym environment. So.
Yeah, and I think that's good, whether you're switching different cycles or spending more time doing metcons and conditioning and, dabbling in a little bit of strength versus more of a, traditional or conjugate cycle. Physically, it's good for the body to keep changing it up, because it just adapts to a certain program and it kind of plateaus. But like mentally too, you just, like we've kind of talked about before, like you just kind of get bored, right? If you're doing the same thing for several months, you may be making progress, but like you have to switch it up just for your own mental sake. Like I need to do something different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you can still make progress, but I need to change this up a little bit, because I'm not really psychologically motivated to be in the gym right now to do this. It seems like a job. It's not fun anymore.
Yeah. So we are at our gym. We're gonna run, and I'll explain it. We're gonna put out some infographics and some things, and I'm gonna put it in our private members group. But we're gonna run a strength cycle, and but it's going to be a concurrent one where we're still going to balance some energy systems, but I'm going to focus, we're going to do some percentage lifts, and if people are newer, they'll basically just do a progressive 3x5 or whatever it is to start to find their lifts. But we're going to do like more strict pull-ups, handstand holds, or, strict dumbbell press. We're just going to focus a little bit more on the strict strength for a couple of months. And then at the end, did you ever do our Rogue Total Day at the old gym, where it's a front squat, a press, and a deadlift day, all in one day in a class?
Yeah, I think we definitely did that.
Yeah. So we're going to do that at the end of this. I think I don't have the date right in front of me, but so we'll end with a 1RM front squat, strict press, and deadlift, which is a fun way to do it. Like in a powerlifting meet, especially if you're doing like a low bar, you need spotters. And front squat, you can dump it.
Yeah, but safer and you don't need a spotter.
Yeah,
But,
bench press, same sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a fun way to sort of end it. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving is when we're going to do it on a Saturday. So I think it'll be a fun little event to kind of close that cycle out. But I think where some people, they'll get addicted to these sometimes, or they'll be like, okay, can we always run one of these? In CrossFit, especially if you look at the philosophy, like strength, slow lift barbell strength is not the base of CrossFit. So
No.
we want to keep a balance throughout the year, and sometimes you got to do a little cycle, whether it's with endurance, gymnastics, or strength, to kind of nudge that ahead so you're not just in a perpetual balance,
Yeah.
but to perpetually only prioritize barbell strength. That's just not going to serve all of our people at the gym.
It's not. And it's, strength training is very sports specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're a swimmer, you're really not concerned about your max deadlift or squat. It's more, muscle stamina, things like you're doing circuits, right? It's, if you're a football player or a weightlifter, there's certain sports that you want to be strong for, right?
Yep.
And get strong, like stronger is better to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But within CrossFit, it's about achieving that balance, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about the hierarchy and the base of the triangle, and looking at the 10 skills of CrossFit, and it's kind of to be able to find the balance, to have strength in there, and people like it, but we've talked about it's prioritizing one thing sometimes comes at the cost of another.
Yeah.
And throughout the year, you're just kind of keep those things level as you can. You can spend some time here, but all right, we can't stray too far from doing this other thing because we're going to lose it. And that just kind of comes with some kind of experience and seeing what people like and how they're responding to it.
Yep. I think at one point in CrossFit, you saw it prioritized for a few years, especially I think it was 2012, the whole regional.
I mean, how do you think we went from 200-pound guy snatches to over 315 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was prioritized. They've gone back and balanced things out. I mean, you can, and it's just crazy because the caliber of athlete who can balance all that is insane now. But they're making people do mile swims and things like that, and do little triathlons on top of all of that at the games level. And so you can't just sandbag. Where people, I think they thought they had it figured out after maybe the 08 games. Okay, if I just get really good at repping, this sort of weight and good at this time domain, I can crush everything. And then they keep you guessing now. So
I think when I got into CrossFit, I think and reading more about the philosophy, the methodology, and getting into it, it varied from having, or it was different in the fact that I was always kind of, when I was younger and in college, you're periodizing, you're lifting throughout the year and training for the season or a specific event, right? And when you're not necessarily doing that anymore, this is a program now and a philosophy that is kind of being constantly varied but not random, right? So you're doing a little bit of everything, and you're constantly, hopefully, trying to get better. The more and more you go, and the longer you do it. But it wasn't that kind of infinite growth. And this is the event. This is the point. The point now is just life for the next 50 years. And so I'm just trying to maintain that. And it's surprising how, even though there may not be that, strength cycle you do, or traditionally, right, just the kind of linear progression week by week, adding, pounds here and there. But just kind of that planned variation that each week, or just, next time you come to a back squat that you did a set of 3, I look it up, what is it, or I'm going to do a little bit more. You just, especially if you track your stuff, right? Every time you come across a similar movement or a similar workout, being able to try to beat that in each time works really effectively.
Yeah.
And it works really well for beginners and intermediate. It works for a very, very long time.
Yep.
You can get people stronger without doing any type of traditional weightlifting or strength training, protocol.
I have 3. So the way I do it, and where I'm good at my strength. So I think this is a good tip for people, and it's worked really well for me probably the last 5 years. So with the deadlift, bench press and a back squat. It's really simple for me. It's not going to balance out this way for everyone. Mm-hmm. So a 3 rep, I'm not thinking about a 1 rep max, but a 3 rep max. If I can pull 405 for a triple, back squat 315 for a triple, so it's basically pulling a plate off, and bench press 225 for a triple, I don't see any athletic gains for my body. Now, it's going to change for every person. So some people are way stronger, some people aren't as strong. But I don't, like, if I get stronger than that with the deadlift, my back's pretty damn stable if I can pull that deadlift. My legs and everything are pretty strong if I can squat that. And then, my arms and upper body are pretty strong if I can bench that. If I go above that, I see no, and then I start to lose a lot of ground in other ways. If those get too far away where I'm like, I can't do that, then I'm like, ooh, I'm starting to feel a little bit weak.
Yeah, I mean, that happens even within CrossFit, but even like, take, for example, like me and like playing football, like at a certain point, if I could get stronger and stronger, I would need to add more mass to me, right? So I would need to add more muscle, eat more, but at some point, I'm losing all my athletic ability on the field. So at some point, the stronger you are doesn't always mean the better. You kind of lose athleticism in certain sports. Like, you just don't want that, right? You got to be able to move. You got to be able to be on your feet. And so, there is a point where you have enough strength that you need, and more is not necessarily better. It kind of tends to compromise things a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're talking about kind of like that 405, 315, 225. It's kind of, especially as we get older. I mean, we're in our 30s, but like as we get older, like I have certain numbers in those main lifts that I'm like, just hold on to these as long as you can.
Those are getting tough for me.
If I said, all right, I want to go higher than I did before, I want to increase them, like, then I'm going to have to set aside more time doing it. I'm going to have to do a strength cycle, but it's all about what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to prioritize? Like, I'm just trying to hold on to some of those strength numbers the older I get, and the longer I can hold on to them, the better.
Yep.
I'm never ever going to be as strong as I used to be. So why try? I'm not going to try to PR my, snatch or my clean and jerk from August. It's just not. It's not as important. I'm not in an lifting meet, and so
you want to keep your pain levels at a certain down. When you're chasing that,
I don't want to make this just about like an old guys podcast, like just trying to hold on to things here. But that goes the same for any athlete in their 20s, and it's infinite growth and getting stronger is not necessarily always the best thing, and it's fun to see results and see your numbers go up, but depending upon what your goals are and what you want, like, just make sure that that's in line with everything else.
It's in balance.
It's balance with your other physical skills you need, and
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place to stop, and I hope some people listen to this and they're it helps you just wrap your head around the benefits, but also some of the drawbacks, and why maybe whether you're at either of our gyms where you're not just seeing like a perpetual percentage based lift before every workout and then it just keeps cycling back. I think when you're competing and you're trying to peak at a certain time, it's very important to prioritize that and do it all of the time. But if you're trying to stay in shape, fit, look good, go to the beach, 365 and maintain a balanced lifestyle, it's not something you want to do all year round.
And I think the approach that I really take in the gym we run now is I know strength cycles work, right? It's just very, if you have a team or athletes or an athlete on a specific schedule and program, it's very easy to tell them what to do, and they do it the same, they work at the same time every day, same days of the week. Everything's, the more specific your goal, the more structured and specific your plan is, right? Within a CrossFit, running a gym with a big community, like, people are coming at different schedules, different times, so it gets a little complicated. I'm not saying it can't work, and but I've just found that just implementing, various different heavy days, light days, accessory days, kind of trying to find that CrossFit balance works really well for a lot of people, and they just continue to grow, and even myself, that worked for a long time. And if, there's a particular athlete who has, higher ambitions or goals or certain things they want to do, that becomes kind of a case-by-case basis.
Yep.
All right, let's draw up a plan for you, right? Let's do, some free time in the gym or after class, I want you to work on some of these things. And that could be anything from a barbell lift to gymnastics things. But just as a whole, I've never really kind of gotten into really year-long structuring things so much like that.
Yep.
I mean, when we were competing back in the day, we did Hyperfit with Doug
Yep.
and that kind of program, and it worked really well. It was grueling to say the least.
Yeah,
But
I have.
I know
notes
we had some notes on there. We didn't really get into it.
I
But
know.
yeah,
I have notes
we
on
can pocket
that
for another
and
time. but-
we can go into the history of that, and shout out to Doug Chapman because he was a big mentor, I think, to both of us, early on in CrossFit.
And it's very, those plans he had. It was basically, all right, here's the class workout, the class strength, but which all his athletes would do. But then it just had more and more stuff, right? You have more skills, a little extra conditioning, in different cycles like that. But it was a way to like, okay, I'm working out 5 days a week. The next week, whatever I did on that, on that mofo for last week, I'm going to add 5 pounds this week, and it works.
Oh yeah.
But when you're a serious athlete or have serious goals or some things in sight, an event, a competition, that kind of staves off the monotony and the boredom of it, right? Like I'm doing this for a purpose now. But not everyone that comes to a CrossFit gym is really there for that, right?
Yep.
So they're kind of branched off years ago between competitive CrossFit and general physical preparedness.
Yeah.
And trying to find the balance of those. I mean, I'm definitely open to people in the gym asking about stuff, and I'll ask people, do you want to do this? And just kind of seeing what the people want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, I think that's a great place for us to stop. We will see you next month, and we'll have another topic for you. See you guys.
Cheers.